Hey, it's CurlyHairedVanguard, and today we're going to be talking about the state of Vanguard ZERO in 2022. So I didn't really know how to go about this. I know I've wanted to do a video like this for a while, and I even got a comment from Bullet Streams here to sort of something around those same lines, right? An idea for a video, and it was sort of around those same things, but I couldn't really come up with like any sort of like general format or structure for this. So instead of like having a script, we're just going to be going off the cuff here. I have a couple of bullet points that I'll go through just to keep me on track, because I tend to just tangent all over the place. But in general, I'm usually a lot better when things are unscripted, because I just bleh, and things come out a lot easier. But the reason why I was having a lot of trouble with this is because there's a lot of things to talk about, but there's no like sort of general consensus or like point to reach, right? And I didn't want it to just be like a 20, 30, 40, 50 minute video of just old man yells at game studio in Bushiroad, right? I didn't want that to happen. So overall, Vanguard ZERO has been doing, I think, pretty okay as a game in of itself, right? It still has its issues. A lot of them have been addressed. So there's like the clan events and stuff like that. That was like a real issue in the past. Things like that, mostly smoothed out. And in terms of like being able to use the deck you want, you know, the meta itself and climbing the ladder and whatnot, that has been a pretty pleasant experience for the most part, right? Whereas like before it was a little bit more stunted because there was really only but so many things you can play, and obviously some things were better than other things. Now it's a lot more balanced, right? And a lot of people are experimenting with a lot of different things, right? So overall, in a bubble, things look great. But on the outside, not so much. There's a few obvious things, like for some reason we don't have replays for our matches, which is kind of dumb. I feel like that's just such a simple, basic thing that we should have had from launch, to be honest, right? And there's like things like before when you would lose a match, they would show you like this little breakdown of how much damage you did to your opponent. And it would be cool to see like these really high numbers, like, oh wow, I did like 12 damage and still lost, oh look at that. They don't even do that anymore. Now it just says you did 6 damage or you did 6 or more damage, and it's just like, I think it only says 6 or more damage, and it's just like right, unless you obviously did less than 6. I wish they had like a more detailed breakdown, right? I'm gonna make a lot of comparisons to like Master Duel and Duel Links in this, but I wish they had some sort of like dual assessment or something like that. It's just like, oh, you did this much damage in one attack, or you played this many cards, or you drew this many cards, you hit this many triggers, something like that, right? That would be nice. Give me a little bit more information about the match that I had, since you obviously don't want to let me replay it for some reason. And then other than that, there's like there's a real little thing that I find really silly, where we have this whole team function where you can have a bunch of your like people that play the game. I don't want to say friends specifically, but people that play the game can all be in one team together, right? And you can chat with them, set up fights with them. I don't know if it's just my phone, but I really wish there was a way to set up so that when someone sends a message, and obviously I have different levels for this, but when someone sends a message to like throw a notification to your phone that, hey, you got a message at least. If you're not going to show me the message, at least just say, hey, someone responded in the team chat or whatever like that, right? Like, I understand that could get annoying with like a bunch of people talking at once, but just let me have a slider that says, do you want these notifications, yes or no? Because like there's really no point to the whole team thing if it's just like this. It's not even like a message board. It feels so like antiquated. It just kind of feels like we all meet up at some place, or we all go to like some rock in the middle of a city and we just write down a message, and then we leave and we check like 5 days later, see if one of our teammates saw the message and responded, or I sent someone a letter even more antiquated than that. Like, it just seems really silly. And then the last obvious one is, why don't we have some sort of like Steam client already for Vanguard ZERO? I have this small theory that it has to do with the Japanese voices, as well as like the songs and whatnot. Trying to like sort of license that out, maybe something with Steam, I don't know, because I know for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, they have an online client, but it doesn't have the original Japanese voices, which the mobile game does. And I don't really understand why that is. I think they have it in like Korean or something like that. I don't remember the actual language that they have, but they don't have it in the original Japanese. Zero doesn't have English voice acting, it only has Japanese voice acting, so that's my only guess why we don't have it like on Steam or something like that yet. But if that's not the case, then get on it. Then I guess I can go ahead and address some of the things that Bulletstreams mentioned in their comment here. Overall, gems aren't really that huge of an issue. They could definitely be way better, but I feel like there's a good combination of gems being poured out to players between playing ranked matches and during story fights, and then your dailies, even though it only gives you like 30 or something like that. They could definitely do a slightly better job. I would like them to stop distinguishing between paid and unpaid gems. That's always been super unnecessary in whatever game you play. Really no need for that. But other than that, they could do a little bit better. And then there's also the GR material, which you need to craft GRs, which are really, the highest rarity and also really hard to get in sets and whatnot. I don't even know how I feel about this. I still think it should be a lot less than what it is, which is 5,000. But there are people that have been very easily able to get a bunch of this material and craft stuff anyways, so maybe that's the right number? I guess. I'm just dumb, I don't know. I don't think anyone would complain if it was lower, but if people are able to craft without it, they're obviously never going to be able to lower it, right? Because it's working for most people, so. The gacha itself, I think, is way better. Before, with the bottomless gacha that we had before, where you would just get, random cards at a certain rate. The sort of more box-like structure where it's a specific number of packs and, it has its own pull rates and whatnot. That, I think, is so much better than what we had before. While theoretically, you could have pulled like 3, 5, 7,000 of your triple rares that you needed in one pack, there's always going to be way more likely, like 90% more likely, that you're just going to pull garbage every single pack that you open. Whereas with the box one, whereas you do have to invest a lot more into going deeper into the box if you're a little bit unlucky, you know that eventually you'll get what you need, right? At least there's some sort of like thing to look forward to. Whereas like the other one's more closer to gambling. It's just like, oh man, maybe the next one I'll get it. Maybe the next one I'll get it. This one at some point it's like, oh, I eventually got it. Right? I don't know. They're both pretty much the same, but one's, I think, the lesser of evils, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then the last one was about making the set releases be 2 to 3 months out in time rather than 1 month. I originally thought this would be a really good idea because I hated that the meta only really lasts like a month. Just for so many different reasons, like in terms of making videos, tournaments, actually competing, all that stuff. Like as soon as the next set starts, everything that was from before is kind of gone, or that set is really bad. That's the only time that, the previous stuff is still usually usable. That hasn't really been the case with G. In G, things have been a lot better, especially with the first 3 sets only focusing on 3 clans and then having the clan events in between. So the meta's been really diverse. A lot of the sets, even the very first G set, is still viable, so that's really good. But they are going further, where now they're doing like 5 clans per set, which I'm not sure how I feel about that too much, right? Because whereas before, I might have been able to just skip an entire set, because, I was good at whatever I had. Now, if it's just the one clan that's being supported, it's like, oh man, I'm going to have to pull for all these other clans that I maybe don't even play in order to play this one clan that I like, right? But I don't know if spacing out the releases is a good idea, because I feel like they tried that in the JP server before G, because they had the small like intro month, but when it came to global, they cut that month out. So my theory is that it didn't really work well, and maybe the users went down for the JP side during that time. I don't really know. That's just my theory, which is why I don't think that they're up for doing that. I would say maybe in like a few months we can go ahead and revisit that, because the game is a lot more open now, whereas like before it was like getting stale really quickly, right, in terms of like the card pool you have. And now there's just a lot more things that you can play with, and a lot of things are more usable, more viable, so it's just so much easier to like build different decks and have different builds, whereas like before you just had clans that had one deck and that was it. And it was all, everyone played that same exact copy of that deck. Whereas like now, each clan has a couple of different decks that they can play, and each of those decks have their own variations, right? We're getting a lot closer to that, which I think is really good. Then the next one, let's just get this out of the way. There was the whole controversy with Shiro that happened. I think it's been like a month. It might have been like a month now. My God, I can't believe it's been like a month. But I won't go into it into too much detail. There is a video that I'll have here in the iCard and in the description that sort of goes everything in as much detail as I've seen on YouTube. We don't really have any like drama Vanguard ZERO YouTube accounts or anything like that to like give you a good video or point of reference for that. But basically, there was a member of the community that was well involved, that was hosting, you know, a lot of tournaments and was climbing constantly in the ladder, being, you know, first in a lot of the seasons. So they were very well known in the community and helping out the community a lot by funding a lot of tournaments and whatnot, and prizes and whatnot, and organizing them. But turns out that this person was sort of lying about a lot of things somewhere down the line, where, for example, they mentioned that they were married and then divorced, and then some other things that I won't mention that ended up all just being a huge lie, and most of the community was just being catfished, more or less. I don't really want to talk about that specifically. What I want to talk about is sort of the ramifications on that, right? Because overall, I think Zero has this really, really bad sort of like image problem, right? Where for like new players, like people who don't even know Vanguard ZERO, I don't think there's like any sort of way for them to get into it. Because for example, with like Duel Links, people know Yu-Gi-Oh! Most people know Yu-Gi-Oh!, right? So like, oh, okay, so there's a mobile version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, I kind of get that. Whereas like other people didn't really get Vanguard as much, I would say. I don't think it has as much appeal, unfortunately. So for them to then go from something as niche to then going to a mobile game, it's pretty difficult, right? Then you have the players that actually know Vanguard. They don't actually play Vanguard ZERO because they see it, one, as a mobile game. Two, they want an actual online simulator to play their actual version of Vanguard. 3, they don't realize that Zero's an actual different, like, technically it's its own format, right? And then 4, they just see it as this quick money grab or this really expensive gacha game. And some of those are justified. We should already have our own sort of simulator, Master Duel, etc., words you've always heard for the last month or so. And likewise, yes, it is a mobile game that's free to play. You can pay or you cannot pay. You can try and play it freely. Obviously, the game wants you to pay because that's how they make money, right? And I'm not gonna lie and say that they're handling it really well. They want us to pay $10 for a cosmetic skin, and then I think the price for like a playmat is like $15, which is just absolutely absurd. That they think that they have the balls to do that, right? And they try to justify it in the sort of worst way where like those skins are actually useful for getting new bonuses in events, but that's actually ass backwards because events are supposed to be for people that don't pay money. So instead you're making those people pay money to do the thing that's supposed to be for them not paying money, right? Anyways, so overall, I think Zero has a really bad image problem. I think they need to do a better job of sort of like setting up Vanguard ZERO as being its own sort of format, and, you know, maybe exploring that a little bit more, right? Which is really difficult for me to say as someone who doesn't play every single format. I really only play Standard and Vanguard ZERO, right? And I know there's Premium, I know there's Premium. I hate that we have so many different formats. As much as I would like it for them to be only one format, I want to just play Standard, for example, right? As great as that would be for me, I understand that that would be the worst possible decision for them to do, because you will piss off probably 90% of your player base, right? And I totally get that. But as an outsider looking in, 3 different formats is not really something that's super appealing to everyone, right? So me saying that there's a 4th also in Vanguard ZERO is probably not helping that out as well, but I think they should really lean into that more, right? In Duel Links, they kind of set themselves completely apart from the actual TCG by using making the most use of the like automated technology of the like actual, game, where you have like skills, something that you can't really do in real life unless, with the speed duels that they made for whatever silly reason, right? So I wish Vanguard ZERO sort of did more of that. They have to an extent, right? They've changed certain skills to better fit it working in Vanguard ZERO, but I think they just need to explore more of that, right? Whether it be making cards that are exclusive to Vanguard ZERO. Hell, dare I even say clans that are exclusive to Vanguard ZERO. You need something to let Vanguard ZERO shine on its own, right? Aside from the fact that it's playing Vanguard on your phone, because it's not playing Vanguard on your phone for most people. It's playing Vanguard ZERO on your phone for most people, unfortunately. And one of the easiest way to do that might just be to finally give everyone an online simulator that lets them play TCG Vanguard on somewhere else, and then that way Zero can be its own thing. But again, talked about that enough, even though I've mentioned it like once, but it's pretty well known that that should be a thing that happens already. Then the last thing I kind of want to touch about, unfortunately, goes back to Shiro again, but before the whole thing happened, he made a post about sort of not receiving support from the company. I guess I don't remember who's. I'm pretty sure he mentioned both, like Game Studio and Bushiroad, but basically not receiving support. Originally, I was gonna do a video on this because it kind of peeved me because it was structured in a way where it was kind of like, oh, I'm doing all this stuff. Me, I put the community on my back. I should be rewarded for this. While it was probably true for the most part, he did help out the community a lot in terms of organizing tournaments and funding it and whatnot. That doesn't mean that the company needs to reward you specifically, but I do think they need to do a better job in like sort of interacting with the community somehow. I don't really have a solution for this, but if there was maybe some more tournaments that were organized by Game Studio / Bushiroad, that'd be really nice, or some more sort of interactive events, right? Like, I don't know if I really want PvP events, because I usually tend to skip those, but if they can find a way to make it sort of interactive, right? If there was a reason for me to have to reach out to other people, not because like I'm forced to do something, but because I want to reach out to other players, for some reason, that would be really nice, right? And speaking of other players, we need to do a better job with sort of getting new players and returning players back into the game. Here's a question for you. Let's say you are, I don't know, school, your job, the toilet, whatever, and you meet this brand new person, and you guys start talking, and they're talking to you about Vanguard, and they're like, oh yeah, I've always wanted to play it, I always wanted to try it, but I'm too scared, or whatever, I can't read, whatever the case may be, right? How do you help this person, you being someone that plays Vanguard? Do you, A, tell them to go to the store and buy a bunch of cards and then go play in tournaments and then try and like get rewards for playing in tournaments that way, and etc, etc? B, do you let them have some of your cards, let them play with your deck, teach them how to play? Or C, do nothing? Obviously, the answer is B, right? When you find a new player, you try to help them in some sort of way. Vanguard ZERO doesn't really let you do anything like that. We used to have a system where at the beginning of the month, I think it was like there's a ranked season every, there's 2 ranked seasons every month, and it's split across. So the first 15 days is one ranked season, and then the second 15 days is another ranked season. They used to have a thing where in the first ranked season of the month, when a set just dropped, you can actually rent out certain cards to try them out for a deck, right? You would go online, and if you won, you would have to pay a certain amount of currency, of in-game currency. And then if you lost, you didn't. You paid, I think, substantially less. For some reason, they removed that feature, which is pretty dumb, right? Because now if I have someone come into the game, I have to just have them figure out the whole gacha system, figure out right off the top what cards they like and what cards they want to play and whatnot. This is just me speaking broadly. I haven't actually like made a new account to verify all this, so I have no idea what it must be like to do, play Vanguard ZERO for the first time. I can't even imagine what it's like to figure out that there's 2 shops and that each of them has their own story mode and you have to do all of this different progression on both sides. I can't even imagine how that's being handled right now. But then there's also when there's like the tower events, which are some events that come up, right, from time to time. That's the only time that they make use of the team function that I mentioned before, where you can actually share decks within people in your team, and you can use them in the events. And if, for example, your teammates have certain cards that get a boost for the event, you can use their deck and then get a boost for that event, right? Why can't I let my teammates borrow some of my decks so that they can get used to the game? Why can't I have someone that's new to Vanguard Zero be like, I don't really know what a Royal Paladin is, but they look kind of cool. How do they play? And I can just be like, oh, well, here is a deck that I have built for you. You can try it, maybe, I don't know, one time in ranked or something like that, however you want to make it, and then let them play it and be like, oh, okay, that's not half bad. And then you can even do it where it's like once per, like only one, you can only share one deck per day, and you can, the other player can only use your deck once per day, or whatever dumb restriction you want it to be, right? I understand we can't do trading cards. Even though it's a TCG, we cannot trade cards in Vanguard Zero. I totally get that. The second they do anything like that, people are just going to abuse the system and make 50 different accounts and then pass over all the cards to them, and oh no, I get it. There's no way around that, right? But I should at the very least be able to interact with new players somehow. You know, help them learn somehow. I think that is it. That's all I've got. Sorry for rambling on for so much. I'm sure there's good points somewhere in this video. But I think that'll do it for me today. If you have any thoughts on any of the things I mentioned, let me know in the comments down below. You can reach out to me on Twitter as well. And I do stream Vanguard Zero at the very least every Tuesday on Twitch at CurlyHairedHero, or twitch.tv/CurlyHairedHero. And take care of yourself.